Hi folks, my name is Mike Dobbs and welcome to another edition of Government Matters here in Focus Springfield. It's my pleasure and privilege this afternoon to sit down with the President of the Springfield City Council, Jesse Lederman. Jesse, thanks for coming by.
Mike, thanks for having me, and to everybody here at Focus Springfield, I'm glad to have the opportunity to share a little bit more information with all the viewers at home about what we're doing at Springfield City Hall.
So I've got a whole list of things because 2023 already is a pretty substantially interesting year, and we're just heading into February. So I wanted to ask you first about some of the stuff that you have been spearheading at the council. You've been really trying to bring in a lot of citizen input in the council, and I just saw, courtesy of Matt Conway's great reporting and the reminder, plug, that you're continuing this by having groups that are going to tackle like 8 different subject of interest. I'm not going to say problems or challenges, but subject of interest. So tell us a little bit about this effort to bring people into the government process.
Well, I can tell you, Mike, I think this really stems from the way that I got involved with local government, which was as a young person working as a youth representative on the McKnight Neighborhood Council, the neighborhood that I grew up in and live in now, and becoming engaged with local government through issues that I was seeing in the community that I felt really needed more attention and to be brought to the attention of our local elected officials. I think ultimately all of the work that we do at Springfield City Hall needs to be centered in our community, and we need more voices at the table to be able to inform that process and make sure that we're really meeting the needs of the Springfield community, as well as looking at core areas for growth in the future. I began this initiative with a working group on civic engagement, and I implemented that in the sort of fourth quarter of last year after having assumed the council presidency upon the departure of my predecessor. And that working group was really intended to bring people to the table around how we could get more folks involved in the work of local government, how we could make local government more accessible and really work better. And the way that we did that was I put out a call to the community, basically a Google form, and I said, if you're interested in serving, fill this out, answer a couple of questions about what you think we need to be working on, and apply for appointment to this body. And we were able to appoint 15 residents from across the city of Springfield, an incredibly diverse group in every sense of the word. My colleague, Ward 5 City Councilor LeVar Click-Bruce, who had just been elected, I appointed him to chair that working group, and they met throughout the fourth quarter, and they were able to gather input from the broader community as well as bring their own experiences forward to come up with some really strong recommendations about sort of policy and operational changes we could make at City Hall to do exactly that, to get more folks involved. And we're working now to implement those, but I was so impressed with the process that they went through, and especially with the fact that I would say more than half of those individuals had never had an opportunity to serve in a capacity like that. And so they brought such a unique perspective. I said, we know there are more core areas for growth in the city of Springfield, and I wanted to replicate that model this year. So I am appointing, we're in the process now of collecting applications for them, 4 more working groups around areas that really are core for our future. That includes labor and workforce development, creative economy and tourism, neighborhood quality of life, and also a working group on digital equity and internet access, because I think we know that seeing the impact of internet access across the city is incredibly important. We know 54% of our households lack access to broadband. And so we're bringing some folks to the table who have experience in that regard to help us do better as a local government.
Excellent. I'd be very curious about the broadband one myself, simply because there's such a movement across the country for cities and towns that have like a municipal electric light department to go into having municipal broadband. I think people are starting to acknowledge that broadband is as important for economic development as is access to electricity, frankly. So I'm very curious to hear what comes out of that.
I agree, and that was one that is particularly near and dear to me. You know, I began getting engaged more with this issue really during the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that highlighted the fact that the internet really has become more of an essential utility for residents in the city of Springfield and, of course, around the world. It's the way that people are accessing education, local government, healthcare, commerce, and to see the recent report that came out that showed 54% of Springfield residents lacking access to broadband, I think is unacceptable. We cannot afford to lag behind in that infrastructure investment. And you mentioned the concept of a municipal fiber network. I actually joined together last year with city councilors from a number of communities, Holyoke, West Springfield, Agawam, Northampton, and we held a virtual roundtable. We brought experts together to talk about, you know, how has the concept of a municipal broadband option, municipal fiber, how has it benefited the communities that have already implemented it? And what we really heard is these communities are in a position now where they're providing faster, more reliable, more affordable internet access to their population at a lower cost than what's available in many communities, including here in the city of Springfield. And so in that sense, I sort of look at it also as really an issue of equity and access and future economic development and potential, because if we have a situation where all of the communities around us are developing this municipal fiber or municipal broadband option, and many are or already have implemented it, that's going to put us at a disadvantage. Why should the people of Springfield and businesses in Springfield pay more for internet when in surrounding communities they're paying less and getting better service? And that's something that this group is going to look at, as well as how are we using technology in the broader sense in terms of our efforts here in the city of Springfield. And we know there's going to be some great funding and support available from the state as well in that regard. So we're looking forward to the results of their plan.
Okay, I don't know if you were at this event. I believe it was last Friday. Bill Hornbuckle, the president and CEO of MGM International Resorts, was in town. I really wanted to go to that press event myself because I had a lot of questions, but I couldn't. Did you have a reaction to this? I'm going to call it revisionist history. They came in talking about 3,000 jobs. I believe that's part of our host community agreement. And now he admits, well, we made a mistake. We can't support 3,000 jobs. We overestimated the value of the Springfield market. And a lot of people I've talked to since then basically don't know how a gaming juggernaut like MGM would have, quote unquote, overestimated a market. Does this concern you when this guy basically says, we're never going to have the number of jobs we said we're going to have, because basically jobs is one of the big elements for why people wanted casino gaming in the city. It was access to more jobs. I just was wondering if I don't know if you were there or if you just read the media reports, what your reaction was to all this.
Well, I was not there, but I did read the same reports that you read and had a similar reaction. I think it's concerning that we are seeing such a lower number of jobs than what was promised. And I think, we were all present in the city when that campaign was going on, and we know exactly what was said. And we also know what the host community agreement says. And I want to say, I think the city council really has been at the forefront for a number of years of pushing to hold MGM accountable to the host community agreement through our host community agreement oversight committee, which is chaired by my colleague Mike Fenton, who was the president of the council when the HCA was originally negotiated some years ago. It's my belief that any aspect of the HCA that is unmet, there needs to be negotiated an alternative benefit to the city of Springfield. I'm not personally in favor of letting any individual or entity that has made a commitment to the people of Springfield and the city of Springfield, especially through a legal document that we've been describing, off the hook. And so certainly I don't intend to do that, and I don't think that my colleagues on the council intend to do so as well. Now, certainly the exact language of that particular commitment will need to be analyzed, and I think that we're going to need to look to the State Gaming Commission relative to their support as well. But I think that another piece here is being highlighted, and that is that the MGM casino is not going to be the solution to all of Springfield's problems, nor do I truly believe that it is in some way an economic savior. Certainly there has been a benefit to the city's finances from the development of MGM, the jobs that have come, and the spinoff that has occurred in cases where the HCA has been upheld. But I also believe that if we're really thinking about the future of Springfield and the future economic success of Springfield, we need to refocus our priorities and our vision, really to prioritize our neighborhood economic centers. And I spoke about this when I was sworn in earlier this year. We have an incredible opportunity, I believe, especially in areas like Mason Square, the X, downtown Indian Orchard, the north end of Springfield. These are economic centers that cry out for investment, that cry out for creative development that really benefits the people that already live here, the people that are already working to uplift and build up our communities. We need to build wealth for those individuals, for our neighbors. And I don't believe that focusing all of our economic attention on the MGM casino is going to deliver the result that really must happen in the future. So I think that ultimately, we need to hold MGM accountable to the promises that they have made. We have the ability to do that through the host community agreement. And I think there can be a benefit there in terms of looking at the types of shows that they are required to bring to Springfield management at the Symphony Hall and the Mass Mutual Center. But I really want to see us talking more about our neighborhood economic centers and economic initiatives that really build upon a grassroots sustainable development. And that's why I created the working group on creative economy and tourism this year, because I think we need to be starting to have more conversations about how we can really innovate in our economic vision for the city of Springfield and bring people to the table who are already working in this regard. To be honest with you, certainly there has been a positive benefit from aspects of the casino, but the things that have truly blown me away in the city of Springfield are developments that have come from our people here in the city that have come to fruition. And you look at some of that at, for example, Gasoline Alley, right down the road from where I live, looking at some of the great businesses that are opening now on Worthington Street, like Dewey's and Jackalope. These are individuals who are investing in the city of Springfield, and we need to make it possible for more people to do that.
Yeah, you're mentioning the restaurants. There's been an incredible boom in restaurant openings in the last year downtown. The old saw used to be, if you want a good meal, you drive to Northampton. You certainly don't have to drive to Northampton if you're looking for a good meal, because with the amount of restaurants we now have in downtown, we really do have a dining district in a way that we haven't had before in many years. And I consider every restaurant that opens economic development. And yes, it's not on the macro like MGM, it's on the micro, but those are the folks that are hiring people, and those are the folks that are meeting a payroll every week.
I agree, and I think that we can build upon that and expand that across the city of Springfield into our neighborhood economic centers. City of Springfield is a very unique geographic situation. Certainly, we have a lot of land area. We have very unique neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods, grew up over a period of many, many years around their own centers, right? That used to be bustling economic hubs. They can be again, but we have to prioritize that sort of support. And I think everything that we've talked about, even thus far in this conversation, can build upon that, building up our infrastructure, whether it's our physical infrastructure, our digital infrastructure, and again, bringing the right people to the table. As elected officials, we take on the responsibility of the late night meetings, the research, and working to understand the big picture. But we also know that there are individuals across our city with unique expertise, with unique backgrounds, education, and they really have the answers that we need to solve these problems. So I believe in a role that I've tried to really bring to elected office in Springfield is that of a convener, to bring the right people to the table. And the other thing that you get a benefit of doing when you bring folks together, Mike, is you start to build a deep bench of leadership. When you have individuals who are able to see that they have the opportunity to be engaged, to make a difference, to implement policy and organizational changes in the city of Springfield to benefit their neighbors, you will find that those individuals will begin to step forward more often for leadership positions and one day run for office themselves. We need to, give those opportunities to the individuals who, should be stepping into those roles. And that's how I got here. I didn't come from a big political family or a family with a lot of money. My parents came here in the mid 80s for jobs and you know, bought their very first home in McKnight. And I had the benefit of just meeting great mentors along the way who showed me what was really possible. And that's how, you know, I came to sit here as the president of the city council. So if we can provide those same opportunities to individuals, I think that it is incumbent upon us to do so.
Okay, I want to get this number correct. I wrote it down here. The Urban Institute has a great website about legal cannabis and its impact across the country. And according to their information, in fiscal year 22, in the state of Massachusetts, there was $157 million generated in excise tax, another $92 million generated in sales tax by the sale of cannabis. Unfortunately, it did not break down the municipalities, which is a number I'm trying to get from someone, because to me, when we talk about economic development, certainly cannabis has been a real economic engine in Western Massachusetts in the last couple of years. But the irony is that we're sitting in the largest city in Western Massachusetts, and we have the least number of I shouldn't say least, because Chicopee has 2, we have 3, but we're 155,000 plus population. How do you view the impact of cannabis sales? Do you view it as a positive thing that's part of, as you were talking about, economic development sort of on a smaller scale? Do you think we could be doing more with that in the city of Springfield? And also, are you concerned at all about both New York State and Connecticut recreational dispensaries coming online and how they might affect Western Massachusetts sales?
Well, I think that it's multifaceted. You know, I think first and foremost, Springfield was somewhat slow to the table in rolling out the actual opportunity for these licenses to be advanced. And that was not a result of the city council. As a matter of fact, some of the very first votes that I took as a city councilor was on the zoning ordinance that we brought forward through the city council to, you know, make sure that everything was in place to be able to appropriately implement what at the time was a new industry. But certainly, while the council is responsible for the zoning aspect of it, it is, you know, the executive, the mayor's administration that is responsible for rolling out the actual HCA process. And so, you know, what we've seen in terms of the way that they have rolled this out with the various rounds that have been done, those have been very far apart. They've been slow and long processes and very different from other communities across the Commonwealth that have been able to do that more quickly. So what that's resulted in was a very slow opening in the city of Springfield. And while I think that we have some very strong operators now open, you know, many of which went through that process, and I commend them for bringing to the table strong proposals, certainly voted to approve each of them in the respect that once they came to the city council for their HCA approval and also their special permit, you know, we did vote in favor of those. But I think that, you know, that's the reason we have so much less than what you're seeing in other parts of the Commonwealth. And as a result of that, certainly consumer behavior, right, individuals may have already identified, you know, dispensaries that they were interested in frequenting. And so in that respect, I think that there was money left on the table in terms of tax revenue for the city of Springfield. When we look at the revenue that is coming in, certainly that is benefiting our city in the form of the portion of it that goes to the general fund. And I think those are revenues that are desperately needed to continue to support core services in the city of Springfield and hopefully allow us to do more in the future. And a piece of legislation that I had authored in 2019 was a very unique piece of legislation that put aside a portion of that funding specifically to benefit our neighborhoods that have been impacted historically by the war on drugs, as well as neighborhoods that are in the immediate area of where these dispensaries are operating. 33% of all of the local tax revenue that we collect goes into this fund. And, you know, another result of the slow opening has been that fund was slow to grow. But today, there's approximately $800,000 in that fund, and we expect that will be a continuous and rejuvenating number in the city of Springfield moving forward. And that's why this year I appointed a new committee of the city council to oversee the expenditure, the process to develop for us to expend those funds to make sure that they're ultimately benefiting our community. That's chaired by my colleague, Councilor Maria Perez. That was a legislation that was the first of its kind in the Commonwealth, because we believed that it was so important to make sure that the communities that were impacted historically for generations actually have the opportunity to benefit from the tax revenue that's coming forward, and that can be spent on quality of life initiatives, infrastructure, education, and housing, all areas that we know we need to continue investing in the city of Springfield.
Let's talk about, for a quick second, housing. Western Massachusetts as a whole is woefully under this, not a restriction, a need. I think it's something like 17,000 housing units that we just need for the 4 western counties. How important is it to you as a city councilor to try to see what we can do to increase housing, and increase housing across the board, affordable, workforce, market rate? How important is that? Because obviously, if we don't have housing, even if we attract people to our region by quality of life or by job opportunities, if they can't find a place to rent or to buy, they're not going to come here, and we ultimately will suffer as a region for that.
I think that it's critical that we invest in our housing infrastructure in the city of Springfield. And the most recent report available from Wayfinders and the Donahue Institute, which really gave us insight into the shortage that we have of housing at every single level, both here in Springfield, throughout the valley, and throughout the 4 corners of Western Massachusetts, really is something that we have been sounding the alarm about. You look at every single level, we know we're short. And that is why, just last year I introduced legislation to create the Springfield Housing Trust Fund. I think that we need, as a city, to really actually be directly incentivizing development at every level of housing, whether that is affordable housing, whether that is market rate housing, whether it is single family homes, multifamily units. We need to make sure that the people that call Springfield home have a home. And I also think, as we talk about the economic development, the economic vision of the future, we do hope that we attract individuals to come and make their home in the city of Springfield. Obviously, there's great support here in Western Mass for East-West Rail, and we're seeing that finally move in the right direction. But we also have to be very aware of the effects of that and the fact that it will further increase the need for housing. And so I'm hopeful that through this Housing Trust Fund, we will be able to bring forward some initiatives that will result in the development of new housing, as well as, Mike, the restoration of our housing stock that's already present in the city of Springfield. We have a very unique situation in that we have some of the oldest housing stock in the Commonwealth, or really in the country. And so in some cases, in our respect, it's not just building new units, but also being able to provide the funds necessary to restore the stock that already exists. And that's why I pushed for the program that recently came forward relative to the exterior repair grants that have been given, because we also know we have a large number of senior citizens and low-income homeowners who want to stay in their home. They want to make sure that their home is having the necessary maintenance done, but can't always afford it. And so I think that continuing those programs, exterior grant repair, as well as pushing the development through the Springfield Housing Trust Fund, is going to be key.
Okay, so at a recent meeting, there was a resolution passed at the City Council about eliminating the trash fee. I'm not sure if you voted in favor or against that. You can tell me. How realistic is it to try to get that done?
Yeah. So I think the resolution you're referring to, came forward in the early part of this new year, and it did pass the City Council. It was actually a resolution calling upon the mayor to consider eliminating the trash fee for 1 year, and the impetus behind that was relative to the surplus of funds that we have as a result of a tax settlement that ultimately came forward last year with Eversource over their property tax bill related to the infrastructure that they hold in the city of Springfield. And I think that the presiding over the debate that night, the feeling that I got from the majority of councilors really was that, when we are in a position to provide relief to our residents, we should do that. And I think that you see, in my opinion, precedent for it at the state level. You know, many people received a refund this year, a portion of their tax bill, because the revenue exceeded a certain point. And so I think that this year it made sense to make that request of the mayor. Obviously, it'll be in his court relative to whether he decides to utilize the funds that way. But again, I think the feeling of the council was if we're in a position this year to provide some relief, then we should. With that said, I also think we have to be honest with our constituents, our neighbors in the city of Springfield about our fiscal state. And the truth is that while we're in a better position than we may have been previously, certainly we are not under state receivership anymore, we also have, you know, real fiscal challenges that are going to be on the horizon. And the truth is that the trash fee covers a portion of our solid waste disposal, but it does not cover the entire thing. And so if there was a move to eliminate the trash fee entirely, that would have to come with an economic fiscal plan as to where you were going to pull that money from ultimately. So this year, certainly there was an opportunity as the result of these surplus of funds, but I'm always going to be honest with the people of Springfield about where we really stand fiscally. And the truth is we have continued obligations that, you know, we can project out into the future, that if we're going to be able to continue to maintain core services, continue to improve services, which is something I think we really need to be doing, we have to be honest with people about where we are fiscally in the city of Springfield.
Sure. All right, I'm looking at the clock. I know when I have to end this thing, but
Flew by.
But Jesse, I got to ask you, man. Are you running for mayor?
You know, Mike, it's a question
See, I
I'm
waited
getting
to
a
the
lot
end for
these
that,
days.
okay?
That's all right. It's a question I'm getting a lot these days. I got it at the barber shop earlier this week, and you know, I hear it from my constituents across the city of Springfield. I think that it's flattering to be asked, but not necessarily flattering personally. It's flattering because I think the work that we are doing is really pushing people to ask that question. It's important work. It's serious work, and I want to be clear that it's not just me. We have a great coalition of people that are doing this work with us across the city of Springfield, and you know, those are the individuals that I look to when I make big political decisions. And so, you know, certainly I think that, you know, there will be an appropriate time for us to make an announcement about what my intentions are for this upcoming election cycle. But right now, we're going to continue to focus on doing this important work, this serious work for the future of the city of Springfield. I really believe that when you look at the history of Springfield, it's one of progress and innovation, and we can rekindle that right now. That's what we're working to do.
Okay, folks, I'll let you determine your own judgment if that was an election statement or not, especially the last sentence there. In any event, this is going to be a fascinating year, not only because of the issues facing the city, but also the election and the choices that the electorate are going to have before them. So in any case, I'll be very interested in say what you ultimately decide one way or the other. But I'm also very thankful that you came in and talked to us about issues today. We really appreciate that here at Focus Springfield. So, folks, I think I'm winding up almost on time, which is great. You've been watching Government Matters here on Focus Springfield. My name is Mike Dobbs, and we've been joined by City Council President Jesse Lederman. Thanks very much for watching.